Picture this. You're standing in an ancient Egyptian tomb, and suddenly you come face to face with a mummy whose mouth is frozen in what appears to be an eternal scream. Her jaw is locked wide open, her face contorted in what looks like absolute terror or unbearable agony. This isn't Hollywood fiction or some horror movie prop. This is real, and it's been haunting archaeologists and scientists for nearly a century. This terrifying discovery was made in 1935 at Deir el-Bahari, near the ancient capital of Luxor. When researchers first opened that wooden coffin, they expected to find another routine mummy from Egypt's glorious past. Instead, they found something that would challenge everything they thought they knew about ancient burial practices and the mysteries of death itself. The woman's face tells a story that modern science still struggles to explain. Her mouth gapes open in what appears to be a final, desperate scream. Her expression so intense and disturbing that it's haunted everyone who's encountered it for decades. But here's what makes this discovery even more puzzling according to every standard practice of ancient Egyptian mummification. This should have been impossible. You see, the ancient Egyptians were masters of preservation. They had perfected the art of mummification over thousands of years, and part of that process involved carefully positioning the deceased in a peaceful, dignified manner. Mouths were closed, faces were serene, and bodies were treated with the utmost respect. So how did this woman end up looking like she died in absolute terror? Recent scientific analysis using modern CT scanning technology and advanced chemical testing has revealed some shocking details. The woman was about 48 years old when she died of average height and suffered from spinal issues. But here's the kicker. Her body wasn't fully mummified according to the standards reserved for the noble class. Her internal organs were left intact, which typically indicated limited economic means. Yet this same woman was buried with valuable jewelry, including scarab-shaped rings made of silver and gold, expensive aromatic compounds in her hair, and a wig woven from palm fibers. All items reserved for the wealthy elite. This contradiction has led scientists to a chilling conclusion. Whatever killed this woman involved such violent pain or severe psychological shock that her jaw locked at maximum extension, and she remained that way even through death and the embalming process. But the screaming mummy is just the tip of the iceberg. Around the world, archaeologists and researchers are uncovering mysteries that challenge our fundamental understanding of human history, ancient civilizations, and the very nature of reality itself. From impossible architectural achievements to evidence that might suggest contact with beings from beyond our world, these discoveries are forcing us to question everything we thought we knew about our past. What if I told you that beneath the waters of the Indian Ocean lies a city that's over 9,000 years old? Older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, older than anything we previously thought possible for organized human civilization. What if ancient texts from Egypt contain detailed descriptions of unidentified flying objects witnessed by pharaohs in their courts? What if statues carved by isolated Pacific Islanders depict beings that look nothing like humans? These aren't the fantasies of conspiracy theorists or the plots of science fiction movies. These are real discoveries documented by respected institutions, studied by credentialed scientists, and published in peer-reviewed journals. Yet they remain unexplained, challenging our most basic assumptions about human history and our place in the universe. Today, We're going to explore 5 categories of historical mysteries that continue to baffle modern science. We'll journey from the depths of Siberian burial sites, where shamans were interred with elaborate bird skull headdresses, to the remote Pacific islands where stone statues seem to depict otherworldly beings. We'll examine architectural achievements that shouldn't have been possible with ancient technology, and we'll delve into documented encounters with phenomena that stretch the boundaries of what we consider real. Some of these mysteries might have rational explanations that we simply haven't discovered yet. Others might force us to radically revise our understanding of ancient human capabilities, and a few might suggest that our ancestors experienced something far stranger than we've ever imagined. But here's what makes these mysteries truly fascinating. They're not just academic curiosities gathering dust in university libraries. They're active puzzles that continue to yield new evidence, spark heated debates among experts, and occasionally turn our understanding of history completely upside down. So buckle up, because we're about to embark on a journey through some of the most perplexing, disturbing, and absolutely mind-bending mysteries that human history has to offer. By the time we're done, you might find yourself questioning not just what you know about the past, but what's possible in our present and future as well. Are you ready to have your worldview challenged? Are you prepared to consider possibilities that might seem impossible? Then let's dive into these 5 categories of unsolved historical mysteries that continue to give scientists, archaeologists, and researchers sleepless nights. To understand why these mysteries are so significant, we need to step back and examine how our understanding of human history has evolved. And more importantly, how recent discoveries are forcing us to completely rewrite that understanding. For most of the past century, mainstream archaeology and history operated under what we might call the gradual progression model. This model suggested that human civilization developed in a neat, linear fashion. Hunter-gatherers slowly learned agriculture, which led to the formation of villages, then cities, then complex societies with advanced technology. According to this model, certain capabilities like sophisticated engineering, long-distance ocean travel, or complex astronomical knowledge only emerged at specific points in our timeline. But here's the problem. Archaeological discoveries of the last few decades have been systematically demolishing this neat timeline. We're finding evidence of advanced knowledge and capabilities appearing much earlier than they should in places where they shouldn't exist, among peoples who allegedly lacked the necessary technology or social organization. Consider Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, discovered in the 1990s. This massive temple complex, with its intricately carved stone pillars and sophisticated astronomical alignments, dates back over 11,000 years. That makes it not just older than Stonehenge or the pyramids. It's older than agriculture itself. According to our traditional model, hunter-gatherer societies weren't supposed to be capable of such monumental construction projects. Yet there, it stands, forcing us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about prehistoric capabilities. Or take the Antikythera mechanism, sometimes called the world's first analog computer. This bronze device, recovered from a Greek shipwreck, contains gear trains so sophisticated that similar technology wasn't seen again until astronomical clocks appeared in medieval Europe over 1,000 years later. The mechanism could predict solar and lunar eclipses, track the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games, and follow the movements of known planets with remarkable accuracy. These discoveries represent what archaeologists call out-of-place artifacts, or anachronistic technologies, objects or capabilities that appear in the wrong time period according to our understanding of technological development. But what if our understanding is simply wrong? What if human capabilities have been far more advanced and far more ancient than we ever imagined? The implications go beyond archaeology. They touch on fundamental questions about human nature, consciousness, and our relationship with the cosmos. Indigenous traditions around the world speak of advanced civilizations in the distant past, of contact with beings from the stars, of knowledge that was lost and must be rediscovered. For centuries, Western scholarship dismissed these as mythology. But what if these oral traditions preserve memories of real events? Modern quantum physics and consciousness research are also expanding our understanding of what might be possible. Concepts that once seemed purely mystical, like non-local consciousness, morphic resonance, or the observer effect in quantum mechanics, are now being seriously studied by mainstream scientists. This creates space for phenomena that previous generations of researchers would have automatically dismissed. The field of archaeoastronomy has revealed that ancient peoples possessed incredibly sophisticated knowledge of celestial mechanics. The builders of Newgrange in Ireland created a passage tomb that allows sunlight to penetrate its inner chamber only during the winter solstice. The Maya developed a calendar more accurate than the one we use today. Easter Island statues are positioned to align with astronomical events. These weren't primitive people stumbling around in ignorance. They were accomplished astronomers and engineers. But perhaps the most significant shift in our understanding comes from advances in dating technology and underwater archaeology. Rising sea levels at the end of the last ice age, roughly 12,000 years ago, submerged vast coastal areas where human populations would have naturally concentrated. Only now are we developing the technology to explore these underwater realms, and what we're finding is revolutionary. The discovery of megalithic structures off the coasts of Japan, India, and the Mediterranean suggests that sophisticated civilizations existed during periods we previously thought were dominated by primitive hunter-gatherers. These aren't just random stone formations. They show clear evidence of human engineering with right angles, precise measurements, and complex architectural features that would have required advanced planning and construction techniques. Genetic research is adding another layer of complexity. Analysis of ancient DNA has revealed patterns of human migration and cultural exchange that are far more complex than previously imagined. Populations were mixing across vast distances much earlier than we thought possible, suggesting sophisticated navigation capabilities and organized long-distance trade networks. The study of consciousness and altered states is also relevant here. Indigenous shamanic traditions, once dismissed as primitive superstition, are now being studied for their potential insights into non-ordinary states of consciousness. Researchers are finding that these traditions often contain surprisingly accurate information about the natural world, astronomical phenomena, and even aspects of quantum physics. What emerges from all this research is a picture of human history that's far stranger, more complex, and more mysterious than the simple narrative we learned in school. Instead of a steady climb from ignorance to enlightenment, we see cycles of rise and fall, periods of advanced knowledge followed by apparent dark ages and capabilities that appear and disappear across the centuries. This creates a context where the mysteries we're about to explore become not just curious anomalies, but potential windows into lost chapters of human experience. They suggest that our ancestors might have possessed knowledge and capabilities that we're only now beginning to rediscover, or perhaps that they encountered phenomena that stretch our current understanding of reality itself. Some researchers propose that we're dealing with what they call forbidden archaeology, evidence that contradicts established timelines and is therefore ignored or suppressed by mainstream institutions. Others suggest that these mysteries point toward periodic catastrophes that wiped out advanced civilizations, forcing humanity to repeatedly rebuild from scratch. Still others wonder whether some of these phenomena might indicate contact with non-human intelligence, whether from other dimensions, other planets, or simply other forms of consciousness that exist alongside our own. As we examine the specific mysteries in the categories ahead, keep this context in mind. We're not just looking at isolated oddities or historical curiosities. We're potentially glimpsing fragments of a much larger story about human consciousness, ancient capabilities, and the true nature of our relationship with the cosmos. The question isn't just what these mysteries tell us about the past. It's what they might reveal about possibilities we haven't yet imagined for our present and future. Part 3. Main content. The 5 categories of mysteries. Category 1. Mysterious beings and human anomalies. Let's begin our journey into the unknown with perhaps the most unsettling category of all discoveries that challenge our understanding of human biology, behavior, and the very nature of death itself. The screaming mummy of Egypt. We opened with her terrifying visage. But the full story of Egypt's screaming mummy reveals layers of mystery that go far beyond her horrifying expression. When archaeologists first encountered this woman in 1935, they assumed they were dealing with some kind of burial mishap or post-mortem changes. Nearly a century later, advanced scientific analysis has only deepened the puzzle. The comprehensive study conducted by Cairo University using CT scanning and chemical analysis revealed details that make her case even more perplexing. The woman's spinal issues suggest she lived with chronic pain, but nothing that would account for her final expression. The incomplete mummification is particularly puzzling because it appears to have been a deliberate choice rather than an oversight. Here's what makes experts lose sleep. Traditional Egyptian mummification involved removing the brain through the nose and extracting internal organs through a small incision in the abdomen. These organs were then treated separately and placed in canopic jars. But this woman's organs remained inside her body, suggesting either extreme haste or deliberate deviation from standard practice. The presence of expensive burial goods indicates she held significant social status, yet she received substandard mummification. Some researchers theorize that whatever caused her death was so shocking or horrifying that even the embalmers, who dealt with death daily, were disturbed enough to perform only minimal procedures. Recent forensic analysis suggests her jaw muscles went into cadaveric spasm, a rare condition that occurs when someone dies during intense physical or emotional stress. Unlike normal rigor mortis, cadaveric spasm affects only the muscles being used at the moment of death and can preserve that exact position indefinitely. But what could cause such extreme trauma? Some theories suggest poisoning, suffocation, or witnessing something so terrifying that the shock literally killed her. Others wonder if she might have been buried alive, though there's no direct evidence for this horrifying possibility. What secrets did this woman take to her grave? And why does her expression continue to haunt everyone who encounters it? The Kuru epidemic and cannibalistic rituals, hidden in the remote highlands of Papua New Guinea. The four people maintained one of humanity's most controversial and ultimately tragic cultural practices for thousands of years. Their story represents a collision between ancient tradition and modern medicine that resulted in one of the most unusual disease outbreaks in recorded history. The four people's mortuary cannibalism wasn't driven by hunger or aggression, but by profound love and spiritual belief. When a family member died, consuming their body was considered the highest form of respect, a way to ensure the deceased spirit found peace and remained connected to the living community. Women and children typically consumed the brain and nervous tissue while men ate the muscle meat. In the 1950s, when Australian researchers first encountered four villages, they documented a mysterious disease that was decimating the population. Victims would begin with uncontrollable trembling, gradually lose motor coordination, experience emotional disturbances, and eventually die within a year. The four called it Kuru, meaning to shake. What puzzled researchers was the disease's selective pattern. It primarily affected women and children, the same demographic that participated most actively in the mortuary feasts. Adult men who typically avoided eating brain tissue were largely spared. The breakthrough came when scientists identified the cause: prions, infectious proteins that can transform normal brain proteins into abnormal forms. These misfolded proteins create microscopic holes in brain tissue, literally turning the brain into a sponge-like structure. Kuru was essentially a human form of mad cow disease, transmitted through the consumption of infected nervous tissue. But here's the truly remarkable part. Some individuals showed genetic resistance to prion diseases, suggesting that the four people had been dealing with this problem for centuries or even millennia. Their population had been naturally selecting for resistance, creating a unique genetic adaptation to their cultural practices. The last known case of Kuru occurred in 2009, marking the end of an epidemic that had lasted over half a century. The disease's decline followed the gradual abandonment of mortuary cannibalism, but not before it claimed thousands of lives and provided science with unprecedented insights into prion diseases. This tragedy illustrates the complex relationship between culture genetics and disease. It raises uncomfortable questions about the intersection of traditional practices and public health, and demonstrates how ancient customs can harbor hidden biological time bombs. How many other cultural practices might carry similar hidden risks? And what does this tell us about the unintended consequences of human tradition? The ancient birdman of Siberia. In the frozen landscapes of Siberia, archaeologists uncovered a burial that challenges our understanding of prehistoric spiritual practices and social organization. The Ostida site revealed what researchers now call the birdman, a shaman buried with an elaborate headdress, constructed from approximately 50 bird skulls and beaks, primarily from cranes and other large waterfowl. The sheer complexity of this burial arrangement suggests a level of social sophistication rarely seen in prehistoric Siberian cultures. Creating such a headdress would have required extensive hunting, careful preservation of bird remains, and sophisticated craftsmanship to assemble the skulls into a functional ceremonial garment. But the Birdman burial contained even more mysteries. The site included overlapping remains of children and adults, suggesting complex funeral rites that might have involved human sacrifice or simultaneous deaths. The precise relationships between these individuals remain unclear, but their arrangement suggests they were all part of a single ceremonial event. Analysis of the bird species used in the headdress reveals something remarkable. Many of these birds would have been seasonal migrants, suggesting the headdress was assembled over multiple years, or that the community had sophisticated knowledge of bird migration patterns and hunting techniques. The symbolism of birds in shamanic traditions relates to their ability to move between earth and sky, making them perfect intermediaries between the human world and the spirit realm. The shaman wearing this headdress would have literally embodied the power of flight and transformation. Radiocarbon dating places this burial at approximately 7,500 years ago, making it one of the earliest examples of complex shamanic regalia in the archaeological record. This predates many other known shamanic traditions, suggesting that sophisticated spiritual practices developed much earlier than previously thought. The investment required to create such elaborate burial goods indicates that this individual held extraordinary status within their community. The shaman wasn't just a spiritual leader, but likely served as a healer, prophet, and keeper of astronomical and seasonal knowledge. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect is what this burial suggests about prehistoric consciousness and spiritual beliefs. The Birdman represents evidence that our ancestors possessed complex concepts about death transformation and the relationship between human and animal spirit. What knowledge did these ancient shamans possess, and how did their understanding of consciousness and reality differ from our own mini-conclusion for Category 1? These three cases, the screaming mummy, the Kuru epidemic, and the Siberian Birdman, reveal a common thread. They all challenge our assumptions about ancient human experience, whether biological, cultural, or spiritual. They suggest that our ancestors dealt with realities that were often far stranger and more complex than we typically imagine. Each case also demonstrates how modern scientific techniques can illuminate ancient mysteries while simultaneously deepening them. The more we learn about these unusual phenomena, the more questions they raise about the nature of human consciousness, cultural evolution, and the hidden complexities of life in the distant past. Category 2. Impossible architectural achievements. Our second category focuses on structures and engineering feats that seem to exceed the technological capabilities of their supposed builders. These aren't just impressive monuments. They're constructions that challenge our understanding of ancient engineering organization and knowledge. The Oya Stone Caves of Japan. Beneath the city of Utsunomiya lies one of Japan's most perplexing archaeological mysteries, a vast network of hand-carved underground chambers that dwarf anything that should have been possible for their alleged time period. The official story claims these caves were created during the Edo period for extracting Oya stone, a local volcanic rock used in construction. But when researchers began seriously examining the scale and sophistication of these excavations, they discovered something extraordinary. The cave system extends for miles underground, with cathedral-like vaulted ceilings so spacious that elephants could comfortably pass through. The chambers are connected by a logical network of passages, ventilation shafts, and structural supports that demonstrate advanced engineering knowledge. The precision of the stonework is remarkable. Walls are cut with mathematical precision, corners are perfectly squared, and the overall design shows careful planning for both structural integrity and functionality. Stone pillars are positioned exactly where they need to be to support the massive weight of the overlying rock, suggesting sophisticated understanding of geological engineering. What makes this even more puzzling is the sheer scale of the operation. Conservative estimates suggest that millions of tons of stone were removed from these underground chambers. If this was simply a quarrying operation, where did all that stone go? Archaeological surveys of the surrounding region haven't identified nearly enough Oya stone construction to account for the volume of material that must have been extracted. The organization required for such an undertaking would have demanded a large coordinated workforce operating over many decades or even centuries. This suggests a level of social organization and project management that exceeds what we know about the capabilities of Edo period regional communities. Some researchers have noticed similarities between the Oya caves and other mysterious underground complexes around the world, including the Cappadocia, caves in Turkey, and various underground cities in the Mediterranean. This raises questions about whether there might have been some form of ancient knowledge or technology that enabled such massive excavation projects. Local legends speak of the caves having much older origins, predating the official historical timeline by centuries or even millennia. Some stories describe them as ancient temples or ceremonial centers, while others suggest they served as refuge sites during times of conflict or natural disaster. Modern geophysical surveys have revealed that the known cave system may be only a fraction of what actually exists underground. Sonar and ground-penetrating radar have detected additional chambers and passages that haven't yet been explored, suggesting the true scale of this underground complex may be far larger than anyone imagined. What purpose could justify such an enormous excavation project? And how did ancient builders possess the engineering knowledge to create such sophisticated underground architecture? The Pyramid of Cono de Arita. Rising from the salt flats of northwestern Argentina, Cono de Arita presents one of the most geometrically perfect natural formations ever discovered, if it is indeed natural. This massive structure towers over 400 feet high and displays an almost mathematically precise three-sided pyramid shape that seems impossible for natural geological processes to create. From every angle, Cono de Arita appears to be an artificial construction. Its sides form nearly perfect triangular faces with consistent angles and proportions. The base is almost perfectly circular, and the entire structure maintains symmetrical proportions that would be impressive even for modern engineering projects. Geologists generally agree that the formation was created through volcanic activity, with magma pushing up through the Earth's crust and subsequent erosion carving away softer surrounding materials. However, the levels of geometric precision achieved through these supposedly random processes strains credibility. What makes the mystery even deeper is the location. Cono de Arita sits in the middle of the Salar de Arizaro, one of the world's largest salt flats, in an area that experiences extreme weather conditions and dramatic temperature fluctuations. The fact that such a precise geometric form could survive millions of years of erosion in this harsh environment seems almost impossible. Archaeological investigations around the base have revealed pottery fragments, fire-blackened stones, and other evidence of human habitation dating back thousands of years. Indigenous groups in the region have long considered Cono de Arita a sacred site, conducting ceremonies at its base and treating it as a connection point between earth and sky. But here's where things get really interesting. Similar pyramid-shaped formations exist in other parts of South America, often in locations that were significant to pre-Columbian civilizations. Some researchers have noted that these formations are often positioned at specific geographical coordinates or aligned with astronomical phenomena. The precision of Cono de Arita's geometry has led some investigators to propose that it might not be entirely natural. They suggest that while the basic formation might be geological, it could have been modified or refined by ancient peoples with sophisticated engineering capabilities. Advanced 3D scanning and analysis have revealed that the structure's proportions closely match those found in other pyramid constructions around the world, including the Great Pyramid of Giza. This has sparked speculation about whether there might be some universal geometric principle or lost knowledge that influenced pyramid construction across different cultures and continents. The harsh environment around Cono de Arita means that any evidence of artificial modification would have been erased long ago by salt corrosion and extreme weather. This makes it virtually impossible to determine whether the formation is entirely natural or whether it represents some form of ancient engineering achievement. Could ancient peoples have possessed the knowledge and capability to modify such massive geological formations? Or are we witnessing an extraordinary coincidence of natural processes? The Lost City of Cambay. In 2001, marine archaeologists working in the Gulf of Cambay off the coast of India made a discovery that could revolutionize our understanding of human civilization. What began as a routine pollution survey turned into one of the most significant archaeological finds of the modern era, a submerged city that appears to be over 9,000 years old. The initial discovery came from sonar readings that revealed geometric patterns on the ocean floor, stretching across several square miles. These weren't random formations. They showed clear evidence of urban planning with rectangular structures, intersecting streets, and what appeared to be large public buildings or ceremonial complexes. Subsequent underwater excavations retrieved artifacts that stunned the archaeological community. Pottery shards with sophisticated decorative patterns, carved stone objects with precisely drilled holes, charred wood fragments, and human artifacts, all dating to approximately 9,500 years ago. This would make Cambay contemporaneous with the end of the last ice age and significantly older than any known urban civilization. The implications are staggering. According to conventional archaeological timelines, complex urban civilizations didn't emerge until around 5,000 years ago, with the rise of Mesopotamian city-states. Cambay predates these developments by nearly 5 millennia, suggesting that sophisticated urban planning and complex societies existed much earlier than previously thought. Analysis of the submerged structures reveals a level of urban organization that rivals anything from the ancient world. The city appears to have been laid out in a grid pattern with main thoroughfares, residential districts, and large public spaces. Some of the stone blocks recovered weigh several tons, indicating sophisticated construction techniques and organizational capabilities. The artifacts recovered from the site show evidence of advanced craftsmanship. Pottery displays sophisticated firing techniques and artistic designs. Stone tools show precision manufacturing that requires specialized knowledge and techniques. Beads and jewelry demonstrate artistic sophistication and possibly long-distance trade connections. Geological analysis suggests that this area was above sea level during the last ice age, when global sea levels were much lower. As the ice sheets melted around 10,000 years ago, rising waters would have gradually submerged the coastal city, preserving it under layers of marine sediment. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Cambay is what it suggests about the development of human civilization. If sophisticated urban centers existed 9,500 years ago, what happened to the knowledge and capabilities of their builders? Why did it take humanity thousands of additional years to redevelop similar urban complexity? Some researchers propose that Cambay represents evidence of a lost civilization, an advanced culture that was wiped out by the dramatic climate changes at the end of the Ice Age. Others suggest that our understanding of human cultural development has been fundamentally flawed and that sophisticated societies have existed much longer than we realized. The discovery of Cambay also raises questions about how many other underwater archaeological sites might exist along the world's coastlines. If this one city survived by accident, how many others might be waiting to be discovered beneath the waves? What secrets does this ancient city hold about the true timeline of human civilization, and how might its discovery change our understanding of our own past? Mini conclusion for Category 2. These architectural mysteries, the Oya Caves, Cono de Arita, and the sunken city of Cambay, share a common theme. They all suggest capabilities that exceed our current understanding of ancient technological and organizational abilities. Whether through massive underground excavation, precise geometric construction, or sophisticated urban planning, these sites challenge our assumptions about what was possible in the distant past. Each case also raises questions about lost knowledge and forgotten capabilities. Did ancient peoples possess engineering techniques that we've forgotten? Were there periods of technological advancement that were subsequently lost to natural disasters or cultural disruption? And how many other examples of ancient sophistication remain hidden beneath the ground or under the waters? Evidence of non-human contact. Perhaps the most controversial category of historical mysteries involves artifacts, structures, and documented accounts that seem to suggest contact between ancient human civilizations and non-human intelligence. While mainstream academia approaches these cases with extreme skepticism, the evidence continues to accumulate and defy conventional explanation. The tiki statues of the Marquesas Islands. Deep in the Pacific Ocean, on the remote Marquesas Islands, stand some of the most enigmatic stone sculptures ever created. Unlike the famous Easter Island statues, these tiki figures display features that bear little resemblance to typical Polynesian or any other known human characteristics. Instead, they appear to depict beings with distinctly non-human anatomy. The most striking feature of these statues is their faces' bulging, oversized eyes that protrude dramatically from their sockets, wide mouths with thick, prominent lips and cranial proportions that don't match any known human population. Some statues display what appear to be breathing apparatus or technological devices around the mouth and nose areas. The craftsmanship of these statues is remarkable, demonstrating sophisticated carving techniques and artistic vision. They are not crude or primitive representations. They're detailed, carefully executed sculptures that suggest their creators were depicting something they had actually observed, rather than creating abstract artistic interpretations. Local Marquesan mythology provides intriguing context for these unusual representations. According to traditional stories, the first inhabitants of the islands were visited by sky beings who came from the stars. These visitors allegedly shared knowledge with the islanders and played a role in establishing their culture and traditions. The legend speaks of Tiki, the first god who was sculpted from earth by supreme beings with divine blood. This creation story bears remarkable similarities to creation myths from completely unrelated cultures around the world, suggesting either common archetypal imagery or shared historical experiences. What makes these stories particularly intriguing is their specificity. Rather than vague references to gods or spirits, Marquesan traditions describe beings with specific physical characteristics that match the features depicted in the stone statues. The accounts include details about their appearance, behavior, and technology that seem more like historical records than mythological tales. Archaeological analysis of the statue sites has revealed that they were created over many centuries, suggesting a persistent cultural memory or ongoing contact rather than a single legendary event. The consistency of the non-human features across different time periods indicates this wasn't just artistic innovation, but a deliberate attempt to record specific characteristics. Some researchers have noted that the Marquesas Islands are extremely isolated, making it unlikely that their inhabitants had contact with other human populations that might have influenced their artistic representations. This isolation makes the appearance of non-human features even more puzzling. What were they depicting if not other humans? The statues also display what appear to be technological elements, devices or equipment that don't correspond to any known Polynesian technology. These details suggest the artists were attempting to depict tools or artifacts that were foreign to their own cultural experience. Recent analysis using photogrammetry and 3D modeling has revealed additional details in the statues that weren't visible to earlier researchers. Some figures appear to be wearing what could be interpreted as helmet suits or other technological equipment, further supporting the idea that they represent non-human beings with advanced capabilities. Who or what were these mysterious visitors that left such a lasting impression on Marquesan culture, and why do their depictions appear so consistently non-human? The papyrus Thule UFO account. One of the most remarkable documents in the history of anomalous phenomena is the papyrus Thule, allegedly discovered in the 1930s by Alberto Thule, former director of the Egyptian section of the Vatican Museum. This ancient text, purportedly dating to the reign of Pharaoh Thutmose III, around 1480 BCE, contains what appears to be a detailed eyewitness account of unidentified flying objects in ancient Egypt. The papyrus describes an extraordinary event witnessed by the pharaoh's court, royal scribes, and military forces. According to the translation, multiple circles of fire appeared in the sky, described as being without heads and emitting a foul-smelling breath. These objects allegedly moved toward the royal palace and continued to appear over several consecutive days. What makes this account particularly compelling is its matter-of-fact tone and the specific details provided. Rather than describing divine visitations or supernatural events, the text reads like a bureaucratic report documenting unusual phenomena. The scribes note the object's appearance, movement patterns, duration of sightings, and even their odor, details that suggest they were attempting to create an accurate record rather than a religious or mythological text. The account describes the objects as growing more numerous and brilliant over time, eventually stretching from one end of the sky to the other. On the final day of sightings, the objects allegedly rose high into the air and disappeared, followed by a rain of fish falling from the sky, a detail that adds both surreal and specific elements to the account. The historical context makes this document even more intriguing. Thutmose III was known as one of Egypt's greatest pharaohs, a military genius who expanded the empire to its greatest extent. His court included some of the most educated and sophisticated observers in the ancient world, including astronomers, scribes, and scholars who would have been familiar with normal celestial phenomena. The reaction described in the papyrus is notably calm and analytical rather than fearful or worshipful. The pharaoh and his court apparently observed these phenomena with curiosity and made detailed records suggesting they recognized these objects as unusual, but not necessarily threatening or divine. However, the authenticity of the papyrus Thule remains highly controversial. The original document has never been made available for independent scholarly examination, and some researchers question whether it actually exists. The translation was reportedly made from a copy of a copy, making verification extremely difficult. Supporters argue that the document's style and content are consistent with authentic Egyptian administrative texts from the period. They point to the specific historical details, the bureaucratic tone, and the inclusion of seemingly random elements like the fish rain as evidence of authenticity. Skeptics contend that the document is either a modern fabrication or a misinterpretation of conventional astronomical phenomena described in mythological language. They note that ancient texts often used metaphorical language to describe natural events like meteor showers, auroras, or atmospheric phenomena. But even if the papyrus Thule is authentic, questions remain about interpretation. Were the ancient Egyptians describing something that we would recognize as unidentified flying objects, or were they using the best available language to describe natural phenomena that they didn't fully understand? The document has become a cornerstone case for researchers investigating ancient astronaut theories, while mainstream Egyptologists generally dismiss it as either inauthentic or misinterpreted. The debate continues, but the papyrus Thule remains one of the few alleged ancient texts that provide specific detailed descriptions of phenomena that sound remarkably similar to modern UFO reports. What did the scribes of Thutmose III actually witness in the skies above ancient Egypt, and how should we interpret their detailed account? The crocodile cave paintings of India. In the state of Andhra Pradesh, researchers have discovered a cave system containing some of the most puzzling prehistoric art ever found. Dating back approximately 7,000 years, these caves contain hundreds of paintings depicting crocodiles in remarkable detail. But here's the mystery. There are no crocodiles in this region, and there haven't been for thousands of years. The cave paintings are extraordinary in their artistic sophistication and attention to detail. The crocodiles are depicted in various sizes, some approaching life-size proportions, and show anatomical accuracy that suggests the artists had intimate familiarity with these creatures. The paintings include crocodiles in different poses, swimming, basking, hunting, and even what appears to be social interactions. What makes these paintings truly mysterious is their environmental context. The caves are located in an area that is now arid and water scarce, with no permanent water bodies large enough to support crocodile populations. The nearest crocodile habitats are hundreds of miles away, making it unlikely that the cave painters would have had regular contact with these animals. The predominance of crocodile imagery is striking. While the caves contain other artistic motifs, including human figures and geometric patterns, crocodiles dominate the visual narrative. Some chambers contain dozens of crocodile paintings suggesting these creatures held special significance for the cave's inhabitants. Archaeological analysis suggests that when these paintings were created, the local climate was very different. Evidence indicates that the region was much wetter 7,000 years ago, with rivers, lakes, and wetlands that could have supported large reptile populations. Climate change over millennia transformed the area into its current arid state. But this raises intriguing questions about the relationship between these ancient peoples and their environment. The detailed knowledge of crocodile behavior displayed in the paintings suggests prolonged, intimate contact. Were these animals sacred to the cave painters? Did they serve as totems or spiritual guides? Or do the paintings represent something else entirely? The use of red ochre pigment throughout the paintings connects them to a global tradition of prehistoric cave art. Red ochre has been used by human artists for over 100,000 years and appears to have held symbolic significance across many cultures, often associated with lifeblood and spiritual power. Some researchers have noted that the crocodile paintings include details that seem almost naturalistic, showing behaviors and characteristics that suggest direct observation rather than stylized representation. This level of accuracy implies that the artists spent considerable time studying these creatures. The mystery deepens when considering the logistics of creating these paintings. Some are located in chambers that are difficult to access and would have required artificial lighting to create. The investment of time, effort, and resources suggests these weren't casual artistic expressions, but important cultural or religious activities. Recent discoveries have revealed that similar crocodile imagery appears in other prehistoric sites across India, suggesting this wasn't an isolated phenomenon, but part of a broader cultural tradition. However, in most cases, these sites are also located in areas where crocodiles no longer exist, indicating widespread environmental change over the millennia. The caves also contain evidence of sophisticated spatial organization, with different chambers apparently serving different functions. Some areas show signs of habitation, others appear to be dedicated to artistic activities, and still others may have served ceremonial purposes. What relationship did these ancient peoples have with crocodiles, and what does their detailed artistic record tell us about prehistoric human-environment interactions in a world very different from our own? These cases, the Marquesan tiki statues, the papyrus tule, and the crocodile cave paintings, represent different types of evidence that challenge conventional understanding of ancient human experiences. Whether depicting non-human beings documenting unusual aerial phenomena or preserving memories of dramatically different environmental conditions, these discoveries suggest that our ancestors encountered realities that were often stranger and more complex than standard historical narratives acknowledge. Each case also highlights the challenge of interpreting ancient evidence through modern perspectives. What seems impossible or supernatural to us might have been everyday reality for ancient peoples, while phenomena they considered normal might appear mysterious to our contemporary understanding. These mysteries force us to consider whether ancient accounts of non-human contact might preserve memories of real encounters, whether with unknown terrestrial phenomena, advanced human civilizations, or something else entirely. Lost technologies and forgotten knowledge. Our fourth category examines evidence of sophisticated technologies and advanced knowledge that appeared in ancient times, seemingly vanished, and then reappeared much later in human history. These cases suggest that technological development hasn't always followed the linear progression we typically assume. The Roman squamata fish scale armor. In the ancient fortress of Satala, Turkey, archaeologists made a discovery that revolutionized our understanding of Roman military technology and metallurgy. They uncovered an almost perfectly preserved suit of squamata, fish-scale armor, dating back nearly 2,000 years. This wasn't just any piece of ancient military equipment. It represented a level of technological sophistication that wouldn't be seen again for centuries. Squamata armor consisted of hundreds of small overlapping metal scales, each individually crafted, pierced, and joined together with cords or rivets. The result was a flexible protective garment that offered excellent protection while allowing remarkable freedom of movement. Creating such armor required extraordinary metallurgical knowledge, precision manufacturing techniques, and countless hours of skilled labor. The restoration process took years and revealed incredible details about Roman manufacturing capabilities. Each scale was perfectly shaped and tempered, demonstrating mastery of heat treatment and metalworking that rivals modern techniques. The scales were arranged in overlapping patterns that distributed impact force while maintaining flexibility, principles that are still used in modern body armor design. What makes this discovery particularly significant is the sophistication of the manufacturing process. Microscopic analysis revealed that the Romans had developed techniques for creating uniform alloys, controlling metal grain structure, and achieving consistent hardness across hundreds of individual components. This required not just skilled craftsmanship, but systematic understanding of metallurgical science. The armor's discovery at Satala is also historically significant. This fortress sat on Rome's eastern frontier, facing constant threats from Persian and other forces. The presence of such advanced armor suggests that Rome's elite military units were equipped with technology that gave them significant advantages over their enemies. But here's where the mystery deepens after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. The knowledge and techniques required to create squamata armor seemed to disappear almost entirely. Medieval European armor makers would not achieve similar levels of sophistication for several centuries, and some techniques appear to have been permanently lost. The complexity of squamata production suggests it required not just individual craftsmen, but entire industrial systems. Creating hundreds of identical scales demanded standardized production methods, quality control, and sophisticated supply chains for raw materials. This implies a level of industrial organization that wouldn't be seen again until the Renaissance. Analysis of the armor's composition reveals that Roman metallurgists understood principles of alloy design that weren't formally documented by science until the modern era. They could control carbon content to achieve specific hardness levels, add trace elements to improve corrosion resistance, and create composite materials with tailored properties. The precision fitting of the armor components indicates sophisticated measuring and sizing techniques. Each piece was custom-fitted to the wearer, requiring mathematical calculations and geometric understanding that demonstrates advanced knowledge of human anatomy and biomechanics. Recent research has revealed that Roman armor makers also understood principles of ergonomic design. The weight distribution, joint articulation, and movement patterns built into squamata armor show sophisticated understanding of how to maximize protection while minimizing fatigue and movement restriction. Perhaps most mysteriously, some techniques used in this armor's construction haven't been fully reverse-engineered, even with modern technology. Certain aspects of the scale, joining methods, and surface treatments remain partially understood, suggesting the Romans possessed knowledge that was truly lost rather than simply forgotten. What other advanced technologies did the Romans possess that we haven't yet rediscovered? And how much practical knowledge disappeared with the fall of their empire? The medieval trial of insects. In 16th century France, an extraordinary legal case unfolded that reveals the sophisticated relationship between medieval law, natural philosophy, and religious belief. Local villagers in the Alpine regions brought a formal lawsuit against weevils, tiny insects that were destroying their vineyards. This wasn't a spontaneous reaction, but a carefully orchestrated legal proceeding that followed established precedents and procedures. The trial proceeded with full legal formality. The weevils were assigned defense counsel. Evidence was presented by both sides. Witnesses testified about the extent of crop damage, and theological arguments were made about humanity's dominion over nature versus the rights of God's creatures to sustenance. What makes this case remarkable isn't just its apparent absurdity by modern standards, but the sophisticated legal and philosophical framework it reveals. Medieval legal systems had developed complex theories about the relationship between natural law, divine law, and human jurisdiction that could accommodate such proceedings. The defense argued that the weevils were simply following their God-given nature and had as much right to sustenance as humans. The prosecution countered that human needs took precedence and that the insects were disrupting the divine order by causing famine and suffering. These weren't isolated cases. Court records from across medieval Europe document similar trials, involving everything from locusts destroying crops to rats infesting granaries. Each case followed established legal procedures and drew upon sophisticated theological and philosophical arguments about humanity's relationship with the natural world. The underlying worldview that made such trials possible reveals a medieval understanding of nature that was far more complex than we typically assume. Medieval scholars had developed intricate theories about the hierarchy of creation, the responsibilities of different species, and the mechanisms by which divine will operated through natural phenomena. What's particularly fascinating is the scientific knowledge embedded in these legal proceedings. Court documents reveal detailed understanding of insect life cycles, agricultural ecology, and environmental factors that influenced pest populations. Medieval farmers and legal scholars possessed sophisticated practical knowledge about biological systems. The trial procedures also demonstrate advanced understanding of evidence-based reasoning. Witnesses were called to testify about damage patterns, seasonal variations, and the effectiveness of different control measures. This empirical approach to legal proceedings shows that medieval thinking wasn't as superstition-dominated as often portrayed. The theological arguments made during these trials reveal sophisticated concepts about natural law and divine purpose that influenced legal thinking for centuries. Medieval scholars had developed complex theories about how divine will operated through natural processes and how human intervention could legitimately modify those processes. Perhaps most remarkably, some of these trials resulted in practical solutions. Court orders might mandate specific agricultural practices, require community-wide pest control efforts, or establish compensation systems for crop losses. The legal framework provided mechanisms for coordinating collective action in ways that purely technical approaches might not have achieved. The ritual and religious elements of these proceedings served important social functions beyond their legal purposes. Community participation in formal legal processes helped maintain social cohesion during agricultural crises and provided structured ways to address collective anxieties about environmental threats. Modern analysis of these medieval legal cases reveals that they often addressed real ecological problems using the best available knowledge and institutional frameworks of their time. Rather than representing primitive superstition, they demonstrate sophisticated understanding of the relationships between law, nature, and social organization. What can these apparently absurd medieval legal proceedings teach us about integrating scientific knowledge with social institutions and addressing collective environmental challenges? The finger bone of St. Nicholas, hidden in the medieval archives of Battle Abbey in England. Researchers discovered an inventory that includes one of the most historically significant relics in Christian tradition. A finger bone belonging to St. Nicholas of Myra, the historical figure who inspired the modern Santa Claus legend. This discovery reveals the sophisticated networks of trade authentication and religious significance that connected medieval Europe with the early Christian world. The presence of St. Nicholas's relic at Battle Abbey demonstrates how religious objects served as focal points for complex systems of belief politics and cultural exchange. St. Nicholas lived in the 4th century in what is now Turkey, serving as Bishop of Myra during the persecution of Christians under Emperor Diocletian. Historical records suggest he was known for his generosity, particularly his anonymous gift to the poor and his protection of children. These charitable acts formed the foundation of the Santa Claus mythology that would develop over the following centuries. The authentication systems for medieval relics were far more sophisticated than typically assumed. Church authorities developed complex procedures for verifying the provenance of religious objects, including documentary evidence, witness testimony, and even primitive forensic analysis. The fact that Battle Abbey's inventory specifically identifies this relic suggests it met rigorous authentication standards. The journey of St. Nicholas's finger bone from 4th century Turkey to medieval England reveals the extensive networks that connected the medieval world. Religious relics traveled along the same trade routes that carried spices, silk, and other valuable commodities, often changing hands multiple times and accumulating detailed provenance records. The cultural transformation of St. Nicholas from early Christian bishop to modern Santa Claus represents one of history's most remarkable examples of mythological evolution. elements of his original story, generosity, gift-giving, protection of children, became incorporated into various folk traditions across Europe, eventually merging with Germanic and Norse mythologies to create the familiar Christmas figure. Medieval relic collections served multiple functions beyond their religious significance. They were economic assets that attracted pilgrims and generated revenue political tools that enhanced institutional prestige and cultural artifacts that preserved historical memories across generations. The scientific analysis of medieval relics has revealed sophisticated preservation techniques that allowed organic materials to survive for centuries. Church authorities understood principles of environmental control, chemical treatment, and protective housing that demonstrate advanced practical knowledge of conservation. The documentation systems surrounding relic collections reveal medieval administrative capabilities that rival modern archival practices. Detailed inventories, authentication records, and transfer documents provide comprehensive historical documentation that allows researchers to trace objects across centuries of ownership changes. The theological frameworks that supported relic veneration demonstrate sophisticated understanding of the relationships between physical objects, spiritual significance, and community identity. Medieval scholars developed complex theories about how divine power could be transmitted through material objects and how communities could access that power through proper ritual practices. The decline of relic veneration during the Protestant Reformation resulted in the dispersal or destruction of countless historical artifacts. Many relics that had been preserved for over a millennium were lost during this period, representing an enormous loss of historical and cultural heritage. Modern attempts to locate and authenticate surviving relics have revealed the sophisticated knowledge systems that medieval communities used to maintain and protect these objects. Some preservation techniques and authentication methods developed during this period remain valuable for modern conservation efforts. What does the survival and transformation of St. Nicholas's legacy tell us about how historical memories evolve into cultural myths and how much authentic historical knowledge might be preserved within seemingly fantastical traditions? These examples of lost technologies and forgotten knowledge, Roman metallurgy, medieval legal systems, and relic authentication demonstrate that technological and intellectual development hasn't always followed simple progressive patterns. Advanced capabilities often appeared flourished and then disappeared, sometimes for centuries before being redeveloped or rediscovered. Each case reveals sophisticated knowledge systems that were often more advanced than commonly assumed. Whether in metallurgy, legal theory, or historical documentation, medieval and ancient peoples possessed capabilities that challenge stereotypes about primitive or superstitious thinking. These mysteries suggest that human knowledge is more fragile than we typically assume. Sophisticated techniques and understanding can be lost through wars, social disruption, or simple neglect, forcing later generations to rediscover principles that were once well understood. Biological and medical mysteries. Our final category examines cases where ancient peoples encountered biological phenomena that challenge our understanding of medicine, disease, and the human body. These mysteries often involve the intersection of culture, biology, and medicine in ways that continue to puzzle modern researchers. Ancient Jewish dietary violations. Archaeological excavations at ancient Jewish sites have revealed a fascinating discrepancy between religious law and daily practice that persisted for over a millennium. Analysis of fish bone remains from dozens of sites spanning from the late Bronze Age to the Byzantine era, shows that ancient Jewish communities regularly consumed fish species that were explicitly forbidden by kosher dietary laws. The Torah clearly prohibits eating fish without scales or fins, yet archaeological evidence shows these forbidden species consistently appeared in Jewish communities for more than 1,000 years. Only during the Roman period do we see near total compliance with these dietary restrictions, suggesting a dramatic shift in religious practice occurred under Roman rule. This pattern raises intriguing questions about how religious laws were interpreted and enforced in ancient communities. The persistence of non-kosher fish consumption suggests that either the dietary laws weren't universally known, weren't considered absolutely binding, or were pragmatically ignored due to economic and environmental necessities. The shift to strict kosher compliance during the Roman period appears to correlate with increased pressure on Jewish cultural identity. As Roman influence grew and Jewish communities faced threats to their autonomy, strict adherence to dietary laws may have become a way of maintaining cultural boundaries and religious identity. The archaeological evidence reveals sophisticated understanding of marine ecology among ancient coastal communities. Fish remains show that these populations exploited diverse aquatic resources and possessed detailed knowledge of seasonal availability fishing techniques and food preparation methods. The biological analysis of ancient fish remains has also revealed information about historical climate patterns and environmental conditions. Changes in species composition over time reflect shifts in water temperature, salinity, and ecosystem health that provide valuable data about ancient environmental conditions. Modern DNA analysis of ancient fish bones has revealed some surprising findings about historical biodiversity. Some species that were common in ancient times are now rare or extinct in the region, while others that are now abundant were apparently uncommon in the past. The preservation of fish bones in archaeological contexts has allowed researchers to study ancient fishing technologies and food preparation techniques. Cut marks, burning patterns, and bone modification reveal sophisticated methods for processing and preserving seafood that demonstrate advanced practical knowledge. The cultural and religious significance of dietary laws extends beyond simple food preferences to complex systems of identity, community boundaries, and spiritual practice. The gradual enforcement of kosher laws reveals how communities adapt religious requirements to changing political and social circumstances. Research into ancient dietary practices has implications for understanding modern nutrition and health. Ancient populations often had access to more diverse protein sources than modern communities, and their dietary patterns may offer insights into optimal nutrition strategies. The intersection of religious law, practical necessity, and cultural identity revealed in these archaeological findings demonstrates the complex ways that communities negotiate between ideal principles and practical realities over long periods of time. What does this pattern of gradual religious compliance tell us about how communities balance spiritual ideals with practical necessities? And how do external pressures influence the development of cultural practices? The convict artifacts of Sydney Beneath the foundation of modern Sydney archaeologists have uncovered a treasure trove of artifacts that illuminate one of history's most ambitious social experiments, the transformation of Australia into a penal colony. These discoveries reveal not just the hardships of convict life, but also the remarkable adaptability and resilience of communities forced to build civilization from nothing. The artifacts recovered from the rocks area include personal belongings, tools, household items, and evidence of small-scale manufacturing that tells the story of how convicts created functional communities under the most challenging circumstances. These weren't just survival camps, but organized settlements with commerce, craftsmanship, and cultural life. Archaeological evidence reveals sophisticated adaptation strategies that allowed convict communities to survive and eventually thrive. Colonists developed new techniques for working with unfamiliar materials, created hybrid technologies that combined European knowledge with local resources, and established trade networks that supported emerging communities. The personal artifacts discovered at these sites provide intimate glimpses into individual lives and experiences. Letters, photographs, personal jewelry, and household items reveal the emotional and psychological strategies people use to maintain hope and identity under extreme hardship. Analysis of tool manufacturing and modification shows remarkable innovation under resource constraints. Convicts adapted European tool designs to work with Australian materials, created new implements for unfamiliar tasks, and developed maintenance and repair techniques that extended the useful life of precious equipment. The archaeological record also reveals the emergence of distinctly Australian cultural practices. Food preparation techniques, architectural styles, and craft traditions show creative blending of European indigenous and innovative approaches that laid the foundation for modern Australian culture. Medical artifacts and human remains provide evidence about health conditions, disease patterns, and medical practices in early colonial Australia. These findings reveal both the challenges of maintaining health under harsh conditions and the development of new medical approaches adapted to the Australian environment. The commercial artifacts discovered at these sites demonstrate the rapid emergence of economic systems within convict communities. Evidence of shops, workshops, and trade relationships shows how market economies developed even within the constraints of the penal system. Gender analysis of the archaeological evidence reveals different survival strategies and social roles for men and women in convict communities. Women's artifacts suggest they played crucial roles in maintaining social cohesion and cultural continuity under extreme stress. The preservation of organic materials in some contexts has allowed researchers to study dietary patterns, clothing styles, and living conditions in remarkable detail. These findings provide direct evidence of daily life that supplements and sometimes contradicts historical written records. The transformation of convict settlements into the foundation of modern Australian society represents one of history's most remarkable examples of forced social engineering. The archaeological evidence shows how communities can adapt, innovate, and create new cultural forms, even under the most challenging circumstances. Modern conservation efforts to preserve and interpret these archaeological sites face challenges balancing development pressures with historical preservation. These sites represent foundational moments in Australian history that continue to shape national identity and cultural understanding. How did communities of exiled convicts manage to create the foundations of modern Australian society? And what does their success tell us about human adaptability and resilience under extreme circumstances? The Mad Russian Historian's Mummy Collection. The case of Anatoly Moskvin represents one of the most disturbing intersections of academic knowledge, mental illness, and obsessive behavior in modern history. This respected historian and linguistic expert, who had surveyed over 700 cemeteries and published scholarly studies on funeral culture, was discovered to have created a secret collection of 29 mummified bodies in his apartment. Moskvin's academic credentials were impeccable. He was recognized as an expert on the burial traditions of the Volga region. People spoke 13 languages and had contributed valuable research to the field of cemetery studies. His scholarly work provided important insights into regional funeral customs and historical burial practices. The discovery of his mummy collection shocked investigators and the public alike. Each body had been exhumed from local cemeteries, subjected to homemade mummification processes using salt and baking soda, and then dressed in elaborate costumes with wigs, makeup, and accessories. Moskvin had given each mummy a name and had created detailed biographies and personal histories for them. The psychological profile that emerged during investigation revealed a complex individual whose academic interests had become pathologically entangled with deep-seated emotional needs. Moskvin apparently viewed himself as rescuing abandoned souls from lonely graves rather than as committing criminal acts. The mummification techniques Moskvin developed were surprisingly sophisticated, demonstrating practical application of knowledge gained through his academic research. He had studied historical preservation methods and adapted them using readily available materials to create his own embalming processes. The case raised disturbing questions about the boundaries between academic research and personal obsession. Moskvin's extensive knowledge of cemetery locations, burial practices, and preservation techniques had provided him with both the motivation and capability for his unusual activities. Mental health experts who examined the case identified elements of necrophilia, hoarding disorder, and delusional thinking, but also noted that Moskvin's behavior didn't fit standard psychiatric categories. His actions appeared driven by a complex mixture of loneliness, intellectual curiosity, and distorted emotional needs. The discovery prompted reviews of cemetery security and oversight of academic research involving human remains. Institutions began implementing stricter protocols for researchers working with burial sites and human skeletal material. The case also highlighted the potential risks of unsupervised access to sensitive historical materials. Moskvin's legitimate academic credentials had provided him with access to cemetery records and burial sites that he exploited for non-academic purposes. The public reaction to the case revealed cultural anxieties about the boundaries between scientific research and respect for the dead. Many questioned whether academic interests could justify the disturbing violation of burial sites and human remains. The legal proceedings faced unusual challenges in determining appropriate charges and punishments for crimes that didn't fit standard legal categories. The case highlighted gaps in legal frameworks for addressing crimes involving historical research and human remains. The broader implications of the Moskvin case extend beyond individual pathology to questions about academic oversight, research ethics, and the psychological risks of intensive involvement with death-related studies. What safeguards should exist to prevent academic knowledge from being exploited for pathological purposes? And how can institutions balance research freedom with protection of vulnerable populations and cultural heritage? These biological and medical mysteries, ancient dietary practices, convict adaptation strategies, and pathological research behavior, reveal the complex ways that human biology, culture, and behavior intersect across time. Each case demonstrates how medical and biological phenomena are shaped by cultural context, environmental pressures, and individual psychology. These examples also highlight the challenges of interpreting biological evidence through cultural lenses. What appears abnormal or pathological in one context may be adaptive or necessary in another, while academic knowledge can be applied in ways that serve healthy or unhealthy psychological needs. The mysteries in this category remind us that human behavior and biology are always embedded in larger social, cultural, and historical contexts that shape how we understand health, disease, and normal versus abnormal behavior. As we step back and examine these 5 categories of historical mysteries, striking patterns begin to emerge that suggest these seemingly isolated phenomena might be interconnected in ways we're only beginning to understand. The boundaries between architectural achievements, biological anomalies, technological sophistication, and potential non-human contact start to blur when we consider the broader implications of what we've discovered. Consider the temporal clustering of many of these mysteries. A significant number of our cases, the submerged city of Cambay, the Siberian Birdman burial, the crocodile cave paintings, the Blackfoot stone circles, all date to periods of dramatic environmental change, particularly the end of the last ice age, around 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. This wasn't just a time of rising sea levels and changing climates. It appears to have been a period of remarkable human innovation and cultural development. The technological sophistication revealed in cases like the Roman squamata armor, the Oya cave systems, and the precision of Cono de Arita suggests that human capabilities have oscillated throughout history, rather than following a simple upward trajectory. Advanced knowledge appears, flourishes, and then vanishes, sometimes for millennia, before reappearing in different forms. This cyclical pattern challenges our fundamental assumptions about human progress and technological development. Perhaps most intriguingly, the cases involving potential non-human contact. The Marquesan tiki statues, the papyrus Thule accounts, and even the anomalous features of various archaeological sites often coincide with periods of rapid cultural advancement. The societies that produced these mysterious artifacts and accounts were often at the height of their technological and artistic achievement, suggesting these experiences might have catalyzed rather than disrupted human development. The biological and medical mysteries reveal another common thread: the remarkable adaptability of human communities when faced with extreme challenges. Whether dealing with prion diseases, environmental catastrophes, or forced relocation, human societies have repeatedly demonstrated the ability to adapt, innovate, and create new cultural forms under the most difficult circumstances. The architectural mysteries share common elements that transcend geographical and temporal boundaries. The precision, scale, and sophistication of projects like the Oya, Caves Cambay's urban planning, and even the geometric perfection of Cono de Arita suggest the application of mathematical and engineering principles that were supposedly unknown to their builders. These similarities raise questions about whether there was some form of shared knowledge or technology that spread across ancient cultures. The documentation and preservation of these mysteries also reveals sophisticated information systems that allowed ancient peoples to maintain complex cultural memories across generations. The consistency of features in Marques Antiqui statues across centuries, the detailed Egyptian records of unusual phenomena, and the precise oral traditions surrounding various archaeological sites all suggest that ancient communities possessed more advanced knowledge preservation systems than typically assumed. One of the most striking patterns is how these mysteries challenge the boundaries between different academic disciplines. Understanding the screaming mummy requires expertise in archaeology, forensic medicine, chemistry, and Egyptian history. Interpreting the Cambay discoveries demands knowledge of marine archaeology, geology, urban planning, and climate science. The Papyrus Tully case involves Egyptology, atmospheric physics translation studies, and even aerospace engineering. This interdisciplinary nature of historical mysteries reflects a fundamental limitation in how modern academia approaches the past. Our specialized, compartmentalized knowledge systems may be inadequate for understanding phenomena that ancient peoples experienced as integrated whole. Perhaps our ancestors possessed more holistic ways of understanding reality that we've lost in our rush toward specialization. The preservation patterns of these mysteries also suggest systematic knowledge loss rather than random forgetting. The technology's capabilities and understanding revealed in our cases often disappeared not gradually, but suddenly, as if entire knowledge systems were wiped out by catastrophic events or social disruptions. This raises uncomfortable questions about the fragility of human knowledge and the possibility that we've lost more than we've gained over the millennia. The global distribution of similar mysterious phenomena suggests either remarkable convergent evolution of human capabilities or some form of ancient global communication network that we haven't yet recognized. The appearance of precision pyramid construction, sophisticated astronomy, advanced metallurgy, and complex urban planning across supposedly isolated cultures implies connections that transcend our current understanding of ancient human mobility and communication. Perhaps most provocatively, the consistency of certain themes across cultures and time periods suggests that some of these mysteries might reflect universal human experiences rather than isolated anomalies. The appearance of non-human beings in art and mythology, accounts of unusual aerial phenomena, and evidence of advanced capabilities might represent common elements of human consciousness or experience that we don't yet understand. The modern scientific investigation of these mysteries has revealed both the power and limitations of our current methodologies. While advanced dating techniques, chemical analysis, and digital reconstruction have provided unprecedented insights into ancient artifacts and sites, they've also raised more questions than they've answered. Some aspects of these mysteries appear to be fundamentally resistant to conventional scientific explanation. This resistance might indicate that we're approaching these phenomena with inadequate conceptual frameworks. Our materialist reductionist scientific worldview, while enormously successful in many areas, might be insufficient for understanding experiences that ancient peoples described in terms of consciousness, spirit, and non-material reality. The continuing discovery of new mysteries and the reinterpretation of old ones suggests that we're still in the early stages of understanding our own past. Each new archaeological season, each advance in analytical technology, and each interdisciplinary collaboration reveals previously hidden aspects of human history that force us to revise our assumptions. What emerges from this synthesis is a picture of human history that's far stranger, more complex, and more mysterious than the linear narrative we learned in school. Our ancestors appear to have been more capable, more connected, and perhaps more conscious than we typically assume. They may have experienced realities and possessed knowledge that we're only now beginning to rediscover or understand. The implications extend beyond academic history into questions about human potential consciousness and our place in the cosmos. If our ancestors possessed advanced capabilities that we've forgotten, what does that suggest about human potential? If they experienced phenomena that challenge our current understanding of reality, what might that mean for our own future development? These mysteries collectively suggest that human history is not a simple story of progress from ignorance to enlightenment, but rather a complex tapestry of rise and fall discovery and lost contact and isolation. Understanding this pattern might be crucial for navigating our own future challenges and opportunities. The continuing mystery of these phenomena also serves as a reminder that reality is far stranger and more complex than our current knowledge suggests. The universe appears to be full of phenomena that stretch the boundaries of our understanding, and human consciousness seems capable of experiencing and remembering encounters with aspects of reality that we haven't yet learned to measure or explain. As we continue to investigate these mysteries, we might need to develop new methodologies, new conceptual frameworks, and new ways of integrating different types of knowledge. The answers might require not just better technology or more sophisticated analysis, but fundamental shifts in how we understand consciousness, reality, and the nature of human experience itself. As we reach the end of our journey through these 5 categories of historical mysteries, we're left with more questions than answers. And perhaps that's exactly as it should be. The screaming mummy with her eternally frozen expression of terror, the impossible precision of ancient engineering projects, the tiki statues with their otherworldly features, the lost technologies that vanished for centuries, and the biological enigmas that challenge our understanding of human adaptation. Each of these mysteries serves as a crack in the wall of our certainty about the past. What have we learned from this exploration? First, that our ancestors were far more sophisticated, capable, and connected than mainstream historical narratives typically acknowledge. The engineering prowess required to excavate the Oya cave systems, the astronomical knowledge embedded in ancient architectural alignments, the metallurgical expertise demonstrated in Roman armor. These achievements suggest that human ingenuity and technical capability have been far more advanced and far more ancient than we generally assume. Second, we've seen that knowledge and capability aren't always cumulative. The pattern of lost technologies and forgotten wisdom that runs through our cases suggests that human civilization follows cycles of advance and decline rather than steady progress. Techniques for creating sophisticated armor, methods for preserving organic materials, understanding of biological systems, all of these capabilities appeared flourished and then vanished sometimes for centuries before being rediscovered or reinvented. Third, we've encountered evidence that challenges the boundaries of what we consider possible or real. Whether it's the documented Egyptian accounts of aerial phenomena, the non-human features of Marquesan statues, or the impossible timing of underwater cities. These mysteries suggest that reality might be stranger and more complex than our current scientific frameworks can accommodate. Perhaps most importantly, we've seen how these mysteries reveal the limitations of our own knowledge and understanding. Each case demonstrates how assumptions that seem rock solid can crumble when confronted with new evidence. The neat timelines of human development, the clear boundaries between possible and impossible, the confident assertions about what ancient peoples could and couldn't achieve. All of these certainties become questionable when we honestly examine the evidence. This doesn't mean we should abandon rational inquiry or embrace every wild theory that comes along. Rather, it suggests we need to hold our current understanding more lightly, remain open to possibilities we haven't yet considered, and develop new methodologies for investigating phenomena that don't fit our existing categories. The interdisciplinary nature of these mysteries also points toward a crucial need for more collaborative, holistic approaches to understanding the past. The artificial boundaries between archaeology, anthropology, physics, consciousness studies, and other fields may be preventing us from seeing connections and patterns that were obvious to our ancestors, but invisible to our specialized modern perspective. These mysteries also serve as a reminder that the universe is far more mysterious and wonderful than we often remember in our daily lives. In an age of information overload and technological distraction, there's something profoundly refreshing about encountering genuine puzzles that resist easy explanation. They remind us that reality still contains vast, unexplored territories of knowledge and experience. Looking toward the future, these historical mysteries might be more than just intellectual curiosities. They could be keys to understanding human potential consciousness and our relationship with the cosmos. If our ancestors possessed capabilities we've forgotten, perhaps we can rediscover and develop those same abilities. If they experienced phenomena that challenge our current understanding of reality, perhaps we can learn to perceive and interact with those same aspects of existence. The continuing discovery of new mysteries and the reinterpretation of old ones suggests that we're still in the early stages of understanding our own species and our place in the universe. Each archaeological season brings new surprises. Each advance in analytical technology reveals previously hidden aspects of ancient artifacts. Each interdisciplinary collaboration opens new possibilities for interpretation and understanding. What does this mean for us as individuals? Perhaps it means approaching our own lives and experiences with more openness to mystery and possibility. Perhaps it means developing more humility about what we think we know and more curiosity about what we might discover. Perhaps it means remembering that we're part of a vast, ancient, and ongoing human story that's far stranger and more wonderful than we typically imagine. The mysteries we've explored today aren't just puzzles from the past. They're invitations to a more mysterious, more open, and more wonder-filled understanding of reality itself. They remind us that every answer leads to new questions. Every discovery reveals new mysteries, and every step forward into knowledge also takes us deeper into the beautiful unknown. So the next time you encounter something that doesn't fit your understanding of how the world works, remember these ancient mysteries. Remember that our ancestors faced the impossible and made it real, encountered the unexplainable, and found ways to live with wonder, and created legacies that continue to challenge and inspire us thousands of years later. The greatest mystery of all might be what new discoveries await us, what ancient secrets remain to be uncovered, and what impossible things we ourselves might achieve when we open our minds to the full range of human potential and cosmic possibility. What mystery will you help solve? What impossible thing will you make real? What legacy will you leave for future generations to puzzle over and wonder about? The story continues, and you're part of it.